Hi everyone, I am Tetsuya. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel to watch my videos about Singapore. Today I am going to share my interview videos to my non-Singaporean friends. And the focus of the topic is about my non-Singaporean friends' positive experience in Singapore and also negative experiences in Singapore. Of course, in Singapore, there are much more positive things because Singapore society is very friendly to foreigners and I think to local people as well, local Singaporean people as well. But of course, no society is perfect. So it might be a bit interesting to know about the negative sides of each society, including Singapore. That's why I intentionally made some interview about negative sides about Singapore. Of course, compared to, for example, Japan, the negative things in Singapore is actually much less and I think much better. But it is still maybe interesting for also for Singaporean people to know about what are negatives, what look negative to non-Singaporean people because they have different insight from their different background of the society, etc. Anyway, if you are a Singaporean person, I hope you don't get angry because I asked my non-Singaporean friends to speak honestly about their own experience. And since Singapore is a very advanced society, high quality society, that's why it also brings a little bit negative experience. Some of my non-Singaporean friends I interviewed for this video actually mentioned that negative sides of Singapore. But to be honest, and also as my non-Singaporean friends understand, it's not purely negative. Anyway, I hope Singaporean people or non-Singaporean people, regardless of that, enjoy my interview video about Singapore society built by non-Singaporean friends. So please enjoy my video.
It was very beautiful. And I forget the name of the place. Maybe it was the National Gardens or the Marina Bay Sands, but it's just very beautiful and stuff that took my breath away. And there are certainly things in America that are like that, as I'm sure there are in Japan that are equally as beautiful. But I thought in Singapore, almost everything was beautiful. And I really liked the architecture. The architecture was very different. They had a lot of greenery and vines and flowers and stuff like that hanging down from these buildings. I also thought that Singapore was very clean. I was amazed. I never saw trash on the ground or anything like that. In America, you will see dirty cities. New York City, for example, one of the most famous cities in the world. It can be very dirty. Singapore was not like that. I never saw a policeman, or I saw very few police people as compared to America. However, I think due to the strict laws and regulations, people didn't want to take any chances of doing anything bad because I knew that the repercussions of doing something bad were so drastic that they said it's not worth it. Yeah, another good question. Two things again in particular stood out. One was the safety. I always felt so safe in Singapore. I never felt like I was in danger, right? And I feel comfortable in America as well, but you can go to some bad areas where you have to be careful. In Singapore, I felt safe wherever I went, regardless of the time of day or the time of night.
Basically, when I came to Singapore, the first really noticeable thing was the transportation system. And then, I mean, it is like really integrated, really comfortable. I mean, you can literally reach every single corner of Singapore just by walking and taking the public transport. And then back then, I also like did some backpacking to Europe. Like I went to, I think, Amsterdam, Germany. Yeah. And then when I compare their public transport with Singapore, I still prefer the Singapore public transport. Well, sadly, I never been to Japan, so maybe Japan transportation system is better, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Yeah, that's basically the one thing that really stand out from Singapore. And then also about and so also about the safety. So during my uni days, right, it's quite often that for me to get hungry around like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And it is like really normal for me to just get out from my dorm and then have a supper like outside. So I walk like 500 meters, get a supper and go back to my dorm. Well, I think in the majority of the country, I'm gonna get robbed. But in Singapore, there is no such thing. So yeah, those two things are like the most standing out things in my mind.
For me, what stood out was, the HDB model. They provide low-cost housing to their citizens. I think for me, that is a great example of sort of providing your citizens good houses, good apartments at not such a high cost. Although this could be challenged by some Singaporeans because they feel it's becoming expensive to own a house these days. It's becoming more and more expensive to buy a house, especially when you're young and you take a mortgage for 30 years, 40 years to repay the loan. But I still feel that model is very effective because you get an apartment for 99 years, effectively your entire life period, and you don't pay so much, I feel, because it's funded from your CPF, your provident fund as well. For me, their low cost housing model is a success story. The other thing I loved about Singapore is the food. I think the hawker centers, it's a big part of their culture. Everything revolves around food. Like when you go to a hawker center, you see how lively it is. People are talking, chatting. Um, it's I think one of the best things about Singapore. So for me, the food and the hawker centers also
So I
get.
just wanted to know, because I have never been to India. I just wonder if there's any food court or something like hawker centers in India. Do you have such kind of culture?
So yeah, so in India you do get street food, but when it comes to hygiene or being very reasonably priced, you have food courts in malls, and you have food courts in shopping centers, but those tend to be a bit more expensive. Um, I mean, compared to the cost of living in general. So I think in Singapore, you get such reasonably priced food at hawker centers and such good quality food, hygienic and tasty as well. Like you can get a $4 noodle bowl or a Hokkien mee for like $4. So I think that really stands out because in Singapore generally things are expensive, but food I felt is very reasonably priced at hawker centers. Yeah.
Maybe I kind of like how they tackle the initial stages of the pandemic, especially when they try to inform us in detail about the data on people who are getting infected. So I think that was a very good communication from the government to the general public. And lots of countries are lacking in that sort of like um, communicating between the government and anyone else in the country, right? I think I like Singapore's focus on public transport and everything surrounding like pedestrian needs. So it's very comfortable for me to go to one place to another without going by car or maybe stuck in traffic for a long time. There's MRT and buses. And I think in Jakarta, it's already becoming better, but in many different regions in Indonesia, that thing is still something very rare to find. So when I first got here in 2016, I think that's a very nice feature in Singapore, and it's very convenient to walk around and find out the city on my own. I think that's one good thing that I really like until today. Yeah. I like Singapore because of its convenience and also how they take care of like public transport. And
for now, the main thing would be safety, right? I mean, like you can you can walk like in the middle of the night and you'll be safe in Singapore, basically. It's probably the same for Japan as well, I guess. But then again, I mean, because I have a child, so I think safety is like my main priority. And it seems like the enforcement of law here is pretty good as well. So that's why we decided like Singapore is probably a safe place to raise a child.
If you look at some of the places, yeah, those places are very attractive. They were very attractive to me. Like if you go to the Changi airport and you see that waterfall, and if you go to the botanical gardens here, similarly, if you go to the Marina Bay, Sentosa, and many other places in Singapore, which are very attractive. So definitely you will be attracted, you will show a lot of interest, and you will have that enthusiasm to go there again and again. I will say the only thing that affected me a lot as compared to other countries, the cultural harmony in which these people are living. The way they are respecting each other, the way they are helping each other, the way they are cooperating and sharing with each other. I think that is the only thing which affected me a lot. One of the main difference, Singapore is much more developed as compared to my own country. Even though we are on the track of development, but still we need to do a lot of work. Another thing I'll say in my country, if you look at it, most of the people in Pakistan, they are Muslim community. So you can find very little opportunities to communicate and explore other cultures and religions. And in Singapore, it is a multicultural society. You can find people from every country of the globe. So you can communicate with them, you can talk with them, you can share your experience and get their insights. So it is a very good experience I have here.
But what really stuck out for me is that more than 90% of Singapore is under a green cover. So you can see trees and plants everywhere. And I was fortunate to live close to botanical gardens where I could see close by such amazing beauty of nature. And that's maybe the entire Singapore is covered by green cover, and that these greenery or these trees act like the lung for the entire country, and they protect us from air pollution. And nowadays, if you can see in any country, air pollution is one of the major environmental challenge any country is facing. So for the founders of Singapore to design their whole city, it's like a country, it's a city nation, design an entire nation like a city in a garden or a city with a green cover is such a fascinating concept. And for me to be able to live in such a country and experience connection with the nature, that was very profound and enriching.
Okay, thank you so much. I think you studied some business program before you studied in Singapore. So from that perspective, like a business perspective, was there anything specifically impressive to you about Singapore?
Yeah, great question. Because Singapore as a country, it's like a city and country in one. So Singapore has been developed as a smart city. So if you see, I was studying public policy in Singapore. So we had a chance to interact with a lot of government departments where we understood that the whole nation itself has adopted this vision of being a smart nation. And the word smart is interesting because it one hand conveys the technology part of it. On the other hand, it communicates that the intelligence of the people who are living there, how to harness the natural potential of the people who are living in that country. So I have found that Singapore is able to bring both these together, bring the brain power of the people who are living there, as well as the technology. How can technology enhance the brain power of the people? Or how can technology tap into the brain power of people to create such a beautiful city which works in a very structured way? If you see the traffic signals, if you see the transportation system, if you see even applying for all these government processes and systems, they are also streamlined, that everything happens so smoothly. So the ease of living has been enhanced in Singapore by the use of technology. And that's what stands apart from the other countries I have been exposed to.
You talk the cleanliness. So yes, Singapore actually is known by another name as a garden city. So Singapore actually in terms of size is just a city size. And compared to Shanghai in China, actually it's still slightly smaller than Shanghai in terms of the size, but it's super clean. And that's why it get the name as Garden City. And cannot imagine that when you are in Shanghai, it's a larger size of the city, but you don't find a lot of playgrounds on gardens like Singapore. And Singapore is such small city country, but they still reserve a lot of grasslands and also reservoir for you to hiking. So nowadays I go to southern part of hill. I don't really call it a hill because it's super. The topest hill actually is 150 meters high. It's not really a matter, but actually they reserve all these area and government built all the nice bridge and all the paths for people to hike. So you will find that, yeah, actually you can find any secret place, a nice place well hidden in every corner of Singapore. So this is cleaning side. And on the street, you hardly see any leader. I think it's quite similar to Japan, and people get well across the road. Well, in China, yeah, in big city, they now kind of the cleanness is there, but still you can find the litters here and there. In terms of safety, I would say both cities are safe. Because if you want to compare Singapore as a country to China, like China is so wide. They have tier 1 city, tier 2 city, tier 3 city. I would say my hometown country, China, they are getting better and better now in terms of safety. So I would say both actually give me the security feeling. Like compared to the United States, where I stay, I need to stay a lot and when I go outside alone. But in nowadays in Shanghai or Beijing, as a lady, you hang out late at night, at midnight, and you went back home, you still feel okay, feel kind of safe. And Singapore, yes, I would say compared to safety, Singapore slightly better, but China, big city, actually catching up now.
It's very clean. You know, there's dustbins on pretty much every street corner. And people generally have a very good habit of not littering. So that's quite amazing. It's very easy to find toilets. You know, when you have young children and they need to go to the toilet, it's very quick to find one when you're outside. Diversity, I guess that's another one, because you can find people from every part of the world living in Singapore. Then I guess another thing is probably acceptance in terms of, you know, racial diversity and harmony. You know, some form of discrimination, racism, I think it exists everywhere. I think it's part of human culture. Human nature, I would say, not even culture. It's part of human nature. So, but compared to like all the places that I've lived in, Singapore has a very accepting society. They're very open to the views of others. It's a very multiracial society as well. There's covered walkways. If you think about it, like if I can get from an MRT station to my house without getting wet, even if I don't have an umbrella, I just have to take a longer route, but I can make it without getting wet. So it's pretty amazing from that sense.
I was not happily surprised by it, but again, the prices were very expensive. I did not plan on it being so expensive, but it is.
Just because I'm a foreigner, probably this is not really unique to Singapore per se, but you know that Singapore is like kind of, I mean, like out of 70% Chinese speaking people, and then also quite a number of people here are also from like immigrants from like mainland China. And sometimes what happened was in a group, let's say sometimes I'm people, and then if like these Singaporeans and then the mainland China people start speaking like in Chinese, so I kind of feel left out because I don't really understand what they're saying. But yeah, that's kind of mainly it. I think it's actually, honestly, it kind of often happens in a professional setting, not really when you are talking about the work discussion, but let's say when you go for a lunch together and such, that happens sometimes, quite a lot actually. But yeah, I mean, like initially I kind of feel isolated sometimes, but other than that, like it's kind of okay. Other than that, it's kind of okay actually. I mean, yeah, that's just like sometimes like they just speak the language that like I'm not a part of that language, so that's one thing.
I think what I missed is being able to travel within the country, because Singapore is a bit small. I think India, you could like travel to Goa or Kerala or different parts of the country. So that's something probably you would miss.
Not really, I think, but okay, I don't want to let's say call out bad things in a country, whether I'm in Indonesia or somewhere else. But of course, foreigners and locals have different privileges, and therefore, if let's say I go to a hospital and I want to, let's say, go for an immunization for my daughter, the price for me will be different from the locals, right? They have subsidized fees. And so I've been relying quite a lot on insurance. So thankfully there's insurance here. But without it, like the prices for going to the doctor, for checkups, and especially because I was taking care of my daughter here since she was like 5 months up until 2+ years here. So we had to go to the doctor a few times for checkups, and sometimes even to the emergency room because
So far, actually, I don't really have a really bad experience in Singapore. I mean, like day to day, I mean, sometimes you have a good day, sometimes you have a bad day. It's normal, I think. But then so far, I don't I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think I have experienced any like racism even, or yeah, no, I don't think so.
Luckily, I think Singapore is a place where you can find people from different cultures. I would say it's a multicultural society, and here these kind of things are strongly discouraged. So you cannot find people who will say anything to you because during their early childhood, like their early stages in the school, primary schools, they are taught respect, and they will respect any kind of religion, people from any background. Even here, you will feel like everyone is equal, like there is no discrimination. So I haven't experienced any kind of these things where you will feel exploitation or some other abuses. Not at all.
Of course, in the past few years, since 2011, after the Singapore election, I think they seize they kind of control the PR, the permanent residence permits to foreigners. I heard about before that, actually, it's quite easily as a foreign worker, easily to get a PR, permanent residence card. But after that, even you have a higher degree, still very hard to convert it into a PR. So I think they can have kind of control over there. Yeah. So I think generally, I would say it's a good place to work. But in terms of converting to PR, now the government set a very high bar for they to convert. So once you convert it to PR, you can enjoy some benefits of the local, right? Much benefits of local. So besides of that, I think generally still okay. Like in terms of broker you will face, I think generally still okay. But maybe mentally, or as you say, like people are distinguished from each other. Like I'm local Singaporean and you are foreigner, and there are lots of news I'm talking about in the past. Say foreigners are going here to get their jobs, and the local Singaporean they lose their job opportunity. I think some kind of this kind of voice actually is coming up. Actually, like people come from different location, different country, may have some thoughts. I think it's my nature, but government-wide, in the direction-wise, they actually try to mitigate such a kind of difference and gap. Well, I think it can be normal, like applies for every location across the world and different country. I think it's normal, but usually normally the government actually is quite open. Right, and give the right direction.
I don't think so. I can't think of any such situation. And for the last 4 years at least, we own the house that we're living in. So I I mean I honestly have not faced any such situation in Singapore. I've been trying. I can't think of anything.
I see. Thank you so much. So I think in your personal experience, at least you're feeling you could blend into the Singaporean society like the local people, or maybe without any problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think so.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, I am back. So how was the interview video? Definitely, I'm pretty sure you have seen a lot more positive things about Singapore mentioned by non-Singaporean friends. A lot of my non-Singaporean friends mentioned a lot of positive things about Singapore because Singapore is a very well-organized society. So as a matter of fact, it's very difficult even for me to find fault with Singapore society, at least from on surface. Of course, maybe in the deeper part of the society, there might be some negative sides in Singapore. As I said, no society is perfect, but still what are negative in Singapore looks still acceptable as a foreigner. I am also a foreigner, of course, in Singapore, but still pretty acceptable. Because, for example, when it comes to price, how can we get high quality things at low price? Of course, there are some kind of business like that, but if you want to get something of high quality, you also have to pay more. That's why you can buy safety, you can buy convenience, you can save your time. So it is right to say, pay more money to get better things. In terms of that, some of my non-Singaporean friends said Singapore is expensive, and I also feel Singapore is very expensive, to be honest. But we have no choice to get something better than the things we can get in some other countries. If we lose safety, if we lose cleanliness, if we lose high quality things, we can pay less. But instead, we lose comfort, convenience, and those kind of things. Of course, the focus of the negative things is not only about the price. Some of my friends mentioned something a bit different other than price. But anyway, all in all, in my personal opinion, Singapore is a quite impressive place and very attractive and very fantastic place. It's a great place. Thinking about the structure of the society, how Singapore have been surviving up until now in such a small country. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my video and hope to see you in my channel again in the future. Thank you for watching my video up until here today and see you in other video. Bye bye.